So for today's exercise, you were sent a PDF with comprehension passages, and each passage was followed by a set of questions, and you had 30 minutes to attempt as many of these questions as you could, right? So let's now take a look at each of these passages. But before I take a look at the passages and the questions, a simple strategy which I would recommend you can also follow in the exam. Before you start reading each individual passage and answer the questions, I would have first quickly gone through the entire document, the entire PDF, to take a look at how long each passage was. And I would have quickly discovered that some of these passages were extremely short, followed by just 4 or 5 questions, whereas some of the passages were long and they had more questions associated with them. So, what I would have done is that I may have gone through all the short passages first, right? Or you could do the other way around. You could have gone through all the long passages, whichever way is convenient. For me, when I complete a short passage, I'm able to quickly answer questions. I get the feeling as if I have completed one entire passage, right? Although there are 8 passages of different length, if I first do the short passages, I get the feeling that psychological advantage that I have completed many more passages. And that gives me a boost in the exam. So, although I'm going to discuss all the passages in the order in which they were given in the paper, in the exam, you can always, it's not compulsory to attempt the questions in the order that they are given, right? If you're allowed to switch between passages, switch between sections, then you can always decide to attempt those passages which look easy, which look familiar, and then move on to the other ones. Okay. So the first passage, let's take a look at the first passage and the answers to the questions. The first passage is about stories which are told in particular communities, especially the Afro-American slaves, right? Folk tales are stories. Like even when we were young, our grandparents or parents used to tell us stories of our ancestors or from our mythology or history. And through oral tradition, through word of mouth, these stories get passed on to the next generation. So the stories which were passed on in the Afro-American slave community, there's a discussion about that. Were you able to understand this entire passage? Is there any particular word in this passage that you could not understand? First, we will solve that and then take a look at the questions. The passage talks about how the stories get passed on, that they are not dependent on others. Even if they borrow stories from other whites, they interpret it according to their own thing. So where the stories come, where the meaning of the stories come, that is what this passage was about. Do you want me to tell you the meaning of any particular word, or shall I move on to the questions? Okay. You seem to have understood the meaning of all the words in the passage. The passage itself, I think, is understood. So then a quick look at the questions. The very first one, the author claims that most studies of folktales told by Afro-American slaves are inadequate. When people study the folktales told by Afro-American slaves, that studies are not complete, they are inadequate. Why is the studies inadequate? The reason is so in this passage, in fact, they are looking at the European things and they say that that is not important. It says they do not pay enough attention to the features of a folk tale that best reveal an African influence. Right? It says that the influence from other places are all checked. Right? Even Euro-American tales, the Euro-American influence is clearly given. Right? That black people were most influenced by those Euro-American tales. So that is already there. So A is not my answer. But the African influence is not talked about. And hence these studies are incomplete. So B is my answer to this question. What is the author's main purpose? What is the author's main purpose? He's not trying to create a new field of study. He's not trying to discredit an existing field of study. But he says that they are focusing on something else. They're focusing on the different influences. But the point is, what should you be focusing on? He's trying to change that. He's saying the original focus of the studies is different, when in reality you should be focusing on something else. So Khushi, you're right. The best answer to the second question is C. He's trying to change the focus of a field of study, right? What originally the studies were focused on, he's saying that is not adequate. You should change the focus of the studies. So yes, C is the answer to this question. Next one. The passage suggests that the author would regard which of the following area of inquiry as most likely to reveal the slaves' cultural continuities with Africa. From the given options, which type of inquiry should I do so that I can get to know more about the slaves' cultural continuities with Africa? So, in the last part, it says that similar black people were influenced by tales, but they took this where there was greatest similarity, which had roots in ancestral homeland, right? They're saying that the meaning the slaves derived from them, which had the clearest resemblance to African tradition, whatever the slaves were borrowing from the other stories, the most borrowing was done when it was very similar to what they themselves had, right? So, which area should I study so that I know the cultural continuity with Africa? From the given options, the specific way in which the slaves use folk tales to import moral teachings to the children. How do the slaves use these stories to teach moral things? What are moral things? Like in our own childhood, we used to learn things like grapes are sour, you must always help others. From stories, we used to get these lessons. So these lessons of good behavior are called moral teachings. So he says that the specific way the slaves use the stories to teach moral teachings to the children is an area of inquiry which the slaves should have. Next one. Which of the following techniques is used by the author in developing the argument? In the entire passage, what type of writing technique is the author using to explain things? A cliche is something which is used again and again, right? For example, Marwadis are very frugal by nature. South Indians are very intelligent. Punjabis are fun-loving. These are all called cliches, stereotypes. So is he trying to give a stereotype or a cliche a new meaning? No. Is he refusing to define key terms? No. Is he giving a generality and then specific concrete examples and details? No. Is he concluding the passage with a restatement of the first point? No. What he's doing, and he's actually saying what is the case and what is not the case. What is actually being done and what is not being done, right? The studies is being made from one perspective, but you should make the study from another perspective. That is what he's doing. So option E is my best possible answer in this case. Option E is the best possible answer in this case. So that passage, 4 questions, but slightly difficult. It was not a straightforward passage, right? So understanding the questions and then trying to get the straightforward answer from that passage would have taken a lot of time, and the number of questions that you would have got right would have been low, right? One of the more difficult passages. But at least did you now understand it, the general meaning of the passage and the questions? Right. The second passage, right? It's very small on the screen, but you already have the passage with you. So this was a pretty scientific passage which talks about the energy in the earth, right? It talks about, I think, geothermal energy, where steam is generated from the earth using the heat inside. So it is a very technical passage where it talks about hot, dry rock, how energy is generated, right? Lot of technical terms in this. So, a rather long passage and many technical terms which were given in this. Let us see, are we able to answer the questions based on this particular passage? So, what was the first question? What is the primary purpose of this passage? It's a very technical and scientific passage. So, what was the primary purpose of this passage? Was it to alert the readers about the existence of HDR, hot dry rocks, as an available energy source? Yes. In fact, in a lot of the passage, they are talking about how this is a good source of energy which can be used. So one is definitely possible. But let us take a look at the other options also, right? One. Second, document the challenges that have been surmounted in the effort to recover energy. The purpose of the passage is not, the main purpose of the passage is not to talk about how difficult it is. So B is not my answer. C, it is not to warn the users of coal and oil, right? Technically, they're trying to talk about how HDR can be used as a new source of energy. So C is not my answer. It is not to encourage the use of new techniques. So not D. And it is not to urge consumers to demand quicker development, right? So options 2, 3, 4, 5 technically are not the answers that we are looking for. And hence A. The main purpose of the passage is simply to tell that HDRs or hot dry rocks are actually available as an energy source, right? It's just to create awareness about a new source of energy which can be used to replace the existing ones. Next, sixth one. The passage would most likely appear in what? What type of passage is this? Well, like I already said, there are so many technical terms in it. There are so many scientific information in it, right? So it is not just a research report. A research report would only tell you about what type of scientific things are involved. But if you take a look at the end, in the end, it also talks about economics. It talks about the cost aspect. So it is not a research report. It is not a congressional report is a report which is kept in front of the government. It definitely is not a government type report. It is not a consumer report because it is not easy for ordinary people to understand the technical terms. And definitely it is not a pamphlet. Pamphlets will never have so much technical details. So the word technical is a clear indicator that this passage is most probably from a technical journal, and it is about recoverability of newly identified energy sources. Correct? Right? This one is pretty simple. The way the passage is designed, written, is a clear indicator that it is from a technical journal. Okay? The average geothermal gradient of 22 degrees Celsius. Now, this part is given in the last passage. If you take a look at the last passage, it says, if an average geothermal temperature gradient of 22 degrees per kilometer of depth is used, then a staggering 13 lakh quadrillion BTUs of total energy are calculated to be contained, right? So what is this 22 degrees Celsius thermal gradient for? It is to calculate how much energy is actually, how much of the HDR is actually available. So option E, using gradient of 22 degrees Celsius per kilometer, you will be able to estimate total how much HDR is available in the United States. Right? So E is the answer to this particular question. This answer is there in the last passage. You only need to understand it. Okay. It can be inferred from the passage that the availability of temperature depth records for any specific area in the United States depends primarily on what? Temperature depth records of any place. If you need to find out, then that you will be able to get temperature depth record of that place. It depends on what condition. So the last second passage, it says that the geothermal, which determines the depth of drilling to reach a desired temperature, is a major factor in the recoverability of geothermal resources. It says temperature gradient maps generated from oil and gas well temperature depth records kept by American Association of Petroleum. So if oil and gas was tried to be searched in that area, then temperature depth record is available. So option B is my answer in this case. Option B is my answer in this case. Abhishek, are you with me? समझ में आ रहा है, आंसर्स आ रहे हैं, और नहीं भी आए तो एक्सप्लेनेशन के बाद समझ में आ रहा है. Good. So 8th, definitely my answer is B, because last second paragraph mein it is clearly given, right, that temperature depth records are available if oil and gas was found there, or at least they attempted to find oil and gas. 9th one. In all HDR recovery systems, fluid will be necessary. For what? In all HDR systems, why is fluid necessary? So, if you know science, then obviously even without the passage you will be able to guess it. But if not, then what? The first passage talks about fluids. What does the fluid do? The very first part, it says that whenever water is there, and water is a fluid, it takes the heat from the rocks to outside, right? It causes eruption of water. It takes the heat from one place to another. In fact, the end of the second passage also tells you that it facilitates a removal of heat by circulation of fluid. So removal or transfer of heat by circulation of fluid is very clearly given in the end of the second passage. So definitely my answer is E. Fluid is necessary to allow the transfer of heat. If you carefully read the second half of the passage, then you will get this answer. The second passage, read the end. Very clearly it says what is the need for fluid. Okay. According to the passage, if the average thermal gradient in an area is 22 degrees degree Celsius per kilometer of depth, what can be reliably predicted? Again, we go back to the last passage. If you take a look at the last passage, all the details are there, right? So, temperature of at the base of a 10-kilometer well, will it be sufficient for production of electricity? Right? Second, the drilling of wells deep than 10 kilometers will be economically feasible, or insufficient water is present to produce eruptive phenomenon. If you see this, all these points in one way or the other are there in the last paragraph mainly, right? 2 and 3 not there, only 1 is there, 2 and 3 are not there. So 1 only is my answer. 2 and 3, you won't find 2 and 3 in the last passage, but the 10-kilometer wala thing is definitely there. You can see the 10-kilometer wala point in the last passage, but the last passage does not talk about whether 10-kilometer depth pe economic feasibility hai. It does not talk about sufficiency or insufficiency of water. So only the first one is there in this particular thing. Which of the following would be the most appropriate title? Right? It is not about what is the one word which has been used a lot, at least in the first couple of passages, right? Hot, dry rocks. The term HDR has been used again and again and again, right? They're talking about HDR again and again and again. So the best title for this would be Tappable Energy for America's Future, Hot Dry Rocks. It is not about volcanic activity and hot dry rocks, right? The passage does not talk about volcanic activity in detail. So B is not my answer, right? Hot dry rocks is definitely one of the main points of the passage. So D, tappable energy, and the word tappable energy is also used in this passage, right? If you read the second last paragraph, tappable energy, that word has been used. So the best title using the passage itself would be Tappable Energy for America's Future, Hot Dry Rocks. Chalo, did you understand this passage? Again, technical, but some of the questions were pretty simple, right? Even without getting the overall specific meaning of each and every sentence, using the general meaning itself, we could have answered a lot of questions. Guys, passage was tough, but some of the questions were easy. Without understanding in detail, just even if you got overall meaning of the passage, some of the questions could easily be answered. Any problems with that passage? Uvesh says prima facie it was obscure. Yes, first time when you try to read it, it does not make much of sense because it seems very detailed, very technical. But what you should understand is that they don't expect you to remember all the technical details for a long time. You should be able to get a sense of the passage because all the numbers or definitions, if they ever ask you as questions, you can always open the passage and read it again. So your memory does not have to retain the numbers or definitions. It should just get overall meaning of the passage, and when you're reading the questions and trying to answer, you should be able to recollect which part of the passage used these words. So because you can always go back to the passage, right? You don't have to remember these things, you just need to get a general sense. So once you get used to that, once you understand that these passages, you don't have to memorize, right? You don't have to understand it word to word. Even if you are able to get a general meaning of the passage, you will be able to answer maximum questions. Once you understand that, solving such passages becomes easy. And many a times in exams, they do give one passage which may be a bit technical, right? Majority of the passages will be simple, but sometimes they might give you one passage which is a bit technical. And that is just to make you think that it is difficult, that you will have to remember too much. But in reality, even those passages, if not all, at least more than half the questions you will be able to solve just by getting the sense of the passage, right? Is everybody with me on this? So what I want you to do is, once you now know the answers, after we discuss the questions today, once I give you the answers, at the end of the day, right, after the class is over, when you have time, you should go and read the passage again. Right? And then again look at the questions. First time when nothing was explained, the passage may seem very difficult to understand. But once you have got the answers to the questions, go and read the passage once again. Once you do it 2 or 3 times, it might start making sense. And because now you know the answer, you know what exactly you are searching for in the passage. When you know the questions and the answers to the questions, then reading the passage will give you better clarity. And doing this every time with every passage will actually help you understand more words, more concepts. And next time, even when you are reading a new passage, your brain will be able to process it in a much better manner. Did everybody get it? Right? So don't worry if you're not able to understand it 100% right now. Just follow it, ask questions wherever you need help. And then once done, again try to do it 2 or 3 times. With repetition, you will definitely get the hang of how to solve reading comprehension passages even without understanding 100% meaning of the passage. Chalo. The next one is about legal approaches in whenever new technology is developed, right? How to make it useful for society. So the passage talks about whenever new technology is developed, there are four legal things which you should do so that the new technology can help society properly. Right? Although it seems a bit technical and difficult, believe me, guys, this was a relatively easy passage. If you could just understand the meaning of the words and read it with close attention, you will discover that it's actually a simple passage which is just talking about commonsensical questions. Chalo. What exactly is the passage primarily concerned with? In fact, right now, when I described the overall meaning of the passage, I actually gave you the answer. Right? It talks about how laws, particularly four different legal methods, can be used so that technology is used properly for the benefit of society. Like, if suddenly you make a new, when dynamite was invented, dynamite could be used for constructive purposes. It could also be used for destructive purposes. Which direction will it go? When we discovered nuclear energy, it can be used for generating energy. It could also be used for making the bomb. Which direction should the new technology be pushed and how to push it using legal methods? That is generally the idea that we get from the passage. So, the objectives and legal methods for directing technological development, how to push technological development in a particular direction, is definitely the purpose of this passage. Correct? This was easy. All the the very first line in of the passage gives you the answer to that. So this definitely we could have got. The author cites air pollution from motor vehicles. If you take a look at the last paragraph, you don't have to count lines, the last paragraph. When the author talks about air pollution from motor vehicles, what is he trying to say? Right? What is he trying to say? So it says, air pollution from motor vehicles imposes external costs on all those who are exposed. So external cost means extra, something which is not already included, right? So when buyers and sellers are talking about cost, they are not talking about the cost which is outside. Like pollution is, you pay for pollution, you pay with your health. But when you're purchasing a car, nobody talks about pollution, at least in the motor vehicles. When you buy and sell car, you talk about the cost, you talk about monetary cost, financial cost, but nobody talks about other costs like the cost of pollution. Now it may not be in terms of money, but you're definitely paying with your health. So the author cites pollution from motor vehicles to give example of cost which is not included in buyer-seller negotiations. Did you get that? Next one. According to the passage, transactions between private buyers and sellers, what is the effect that it has in society? When there's a transaction between a buyer and the seller. Now, last second passage, look at the last 2-3 lines. Last second passage, look at the last 2-3 lines. It says there are external costs when the price set by buyers and sellers of good fail to include some costs to anyone that results from production and use of goods, and such costs are internalized when buyers pay them. Right? The last second paragraph, the end of that passage, tells you that whenever there are transactions between buyers and sellers, then it actually has effects which is more than the effect on only the buyer and seller. Other than the buyer and sellers also, it has effect, and that is generally option D. None of the other options makes any sense. So if you read carefully the last second passage, the end of the last second passage, that gives you that D should be the answer in this case. Next one. It can be inferred from the passage the author does not favor what? Here, guys, a very common mistake that you could have made is if you did not pay attention to the word not, which is given in capitals, you might think, what does the author like? And then you will mark some other answer. Technically, they are saying out of these 5, the author will agree with 4 things. You have to find out the 5th one, which the author does not agree with. Right? So, the entire passage is about letting technology develop in a direction. So, definitely, he will not favor causing technological develop to cease. To cease means to stop. When the entire passage is letting technology develop in a particular direction, then how can we say that the author is okay with letting technology stop? So definitely he will not favor the last, causing technological development to cease or stop is not something which the author is definitely going to favor. So that should be the answer to this particular question. 16th, a gasoline conservation tax on the purchase of large automobile with the proceeds of the tax rebated to purchaser of small automobile is an example of what? You buy a big car, you have to pay more money. That money will be used to give discounts to those who are buying small automobiles. Right? So, for buying a big car, I have to pay more tax. And if I buy a small car, I will get a discount. What is this? What are they trying to do? They are putting extra tax on big cars. They are giving discount on small cars. Which means obviously most people will want to buy small cars because that is more efficient in terms of money. So what is this an example of? Right. So you are giving incentives to people to try to modify their behavior. Right. You are not putting a law that you cannot buy big cars. You have to buy small cars. But you are creating incentives. Right. You are saying buy whatever you want. But if you buy big cars, you will pay more money. If you buy a small car, you will have benefit. So they are trying to modify the incentives in the market itself. And hence option B, definitely my right answer. Option B, definitely my right answer. Do you get that? Yes, Prasanna. Most of the, not just DULLB, most of the reading comprehensions will be easier than this. Today, purposely, I am doing a difficult one. So if you are able to understand and solve even difficult passages, then during the exam, any passage will seem easy. Right? If we practice only easy examples and you come across even a medium one in the exam, then you will be at a loss. But during the practice, if we do tough ones, then during the exam, any passage which comes will seem easier than this and you will be able to crack it. That's why we always do tough examples during practice. Chalo, 17th. If there are no external costs as described in the passage, then which of the following would be true? Again, last second paragraph, the last 2-3 lines give you the answer to this. The last second paragraph, take a look at the last 2-3 lines. It says there are external costs when the price set by buyers and sellers of good fails to include some cost to anyone that results from production and use. So if there are no external cost, then it means whatever cost is there, it includes every single cost to everybody. Right? If there is no external cost, that means you have already counted all the costs to everybody. So C is definitely my answer. C is definitely my answer in this one. The author assumes that in determining what would be an optimal allocation of resources, it would be possible to do what? Right? He says optimal allocation of resources, if it is done, then it would be possible to do what? So, optimal allocation of resources. Which part of the passage gives me that? Right? The last passage, middle of the last passage, talks about non optimal resource allocation. He says such externalities leads to non optimal allocation of resources. What are the externalities? He says the externalities result from failure to place a price on air, thus making it free, good, and because of this externality, there is non-optimal resources. He says because you cannot put a price on air, so the resources are allocated non-optimally. So, if because I cannot place a price on air, it is non-optimal, then for optimal allocation, the opposite must be true, which means it must be possible to tell what is the monetary value. If I'm able to put a price on everything, that means I can optimally allocate it. The last passage tells me because I cannot calculate the price of air, so it is non-optimal. So to make things optimal, what do we assume? That we can put a price on everything. So here definitely A is my answer. Correct? So a majority of the answers were from just the last two passages. Pretty easy. Next, on the basis of the passage, it can be inferred that the author would agree with which of the following statements, right? What would the author agree with? Would he say that the government should own technological operations? No, he does not say government does everything nice. Does he say the effect of technological development cannot be controlled? No. In fact, from the beginning, he is talking about 4 things, how you can control it. Will he agree with some technological developments are beneficial? Well, yes, it's quite possible that he may agree with this. But still, let's take a look at the other 2 options. D says, the current state of technological development results in good allocation of resources. No, in the last paragraph, very clearly he says that there is a non-optimal allocation. It is not to the best level. So D, not my answer. And he does not talk about application of development being criminally destructive. In fact, he's saying how it can be made positive. So the only possible option, which makes a lot of sense, is C. Right? That some technological developments are beneficial is definitely what he's saying. Right? So that passage it looked difficult, right? Like the previous one. But most of the questions were answerable if you had just paid attention to few parts of the passage. Right? The questions were not that difficult, and the answers you could have easily picked from the passage itself. Did everybody get this one? Teerth, Uvesh, Abhishek, Khushi? Everybody? I hope the others are also paying attention and getting the answers, even if you are not responding. I hope at least you are understanding the passage and making sense of it. Okay. Next one. What is the passage about? Something related to biosphere and organisms. Again, science-based. It's about biochemical compounds production of certain compounds. Okay. So it's about biochemical cycles and certain compounds which are produced. Any part of this passage, any word that you did not understand, of course, all the scientific words like alkaloids, terpenes, and flavonoids, we just need to know that these are names of some type of chemical. What exactly they are, that is irrelevant. More or less, the passage is about some scientific thing happening in organisms, especially plants, bacteria, fungi, and so on. Okay. So the passage contains information which would answer which questions about the carbon cycle. The passage contains information which would answer which question about the carbon cycle? What are some of the compounds broken down in the carbon cycle? Yes. Which compounds are broken down? We get the names of that. Which compounds are more reactive or which are less reactive? Well, that information I don't think is there. And the role of bacteria and fungi is very clearly given near the end. So 1 and 3, you can get answers to questions 1 and 3 from the passage, but not 2. 1 and 3 can be answered from this passage, but not 2. Okay. The author implies that which of the following is the primary reason that degradation is as important as synthesis to the smooth operation of the carbon cycle. Creating and degradation is destroying. If you read the fourth line, very clearly it says, for the smooth operation of cycle, degradation is just as important as synthesis. And then we get the aage ka thing, that decomposition allows the recycling of carbon, which would otherwise be fixed in certain substances. Right? If carbon, it says that carbon is often fixed in things which cannot be directly used. Right? There are many compounds which cannot be used, but when they are degraded, the carbon is released and then it can be used. So definitely option C is what I'm looking at. He says, in the cycle, many compounds are formed which contain carbon, and plants are not able to use this carbon. But when decomposition or degradation of these chemicals take place, the carbon gets released. And that carbon can now be used. So degradation is also very important. Option C. The author's contention means argument. The author's contention about the importance of bacteria and fungi in the production of energy for life processes would be clearly strengthened if which of the following were found to be true. Obviously, if the compounds which contain carbon cannot be used as energy source except some by bacteria and fungi, then obviously bacteria and fungi are important for production of energy. So option B. Definitely option B. Next passage again. Now this is about the criminal justice system. Juveniles are young ones, not people who are not exactly adults, but not children. So between children and adults, the stage that is juveniles. So it is about juvenile courts. It is about males and females in the system, right? It's more about females than males in the juvenile justice system. Did you understand the passage, everybody? Okay. Then let's quickly take a look at the answers to this passage. Which of the following statement best expresses the irony pointed out by the authors? What is the irony pointed out by the authors? So it very clearly says that females are accused of less serious crimes, but males, they suffer a lot because of this. Females, they are generally accused of less serious crimes. And even if committed, it is males who suffer. They are not considered the same. So option B. What does the author believe about traditional stereotypes of women? So he says the last 2-3 lines. it tells that because of traditional stereotypes, there is inequality and injustice. So it is potentially harmful when you don't treat males and females equally, right? He tells you how in the how in the juvenile justice system females or males are not treated equally, and because of which certain problems arise. So technically he's talking about how it is harmful if you look at women with typical stereotypes. The passage suggests that scholars in criminal justice should be criticized for what? Right? Scholars of the system should be criticized for what? So the very first second line, that even as number of females processed through juvenile courts climb steadily, an implicit consensus remains among scholars in justice system that male adolescents define the delinquency problem. They're saying that the problem with juveniles is because of males. One, they are talking about female adolescents being part of victimless crimes because of which they are not. That there is no clear-cut damage to person or property. So you think females are part of victimless crimes and so they are lenient. So they are focusing on punishing only when there is a property or a person who is harmed. The entire passage says that only when a property or a person is harmed, that it is taken seriously and punishment is given. So the scholars are focusing on only damage to person and property, and that is the problem. So D is my answer. Right? The scholars in criminal justice should be criticized because they are focusing on those whose crimes have involved damage to person or property. They are not talking about victimless crimes properly. Chalo. Guys, I think the next few passages are long. We may not have enough time to complete it. So I'll just put up the answers to all the question on the screen, right? You can check the answers and then you can, if there are doubts, we can take them later. I'll just put up the answers to all the questions so that you can just check whether you got them right. Then we will take a short break and then come back for our static GK. Right? The same Zoom session ID password will continue. You can check your answers for all questions of RCs. I'll put it up on the screen. We'll take a quick break and then we will come back for our static GK session. Okay. Website for comprehension passages. Okay. Search for a website called bodhiprep.com. A lot of these passages are from that. Right? I'll write it if possible on the screen. Okay. The passages will be tough in this website because it's a cat level website. But you can always search for, or you can search for LSAT RC passages. If you want very tough passages, then you can search for a website called BodhiPrep. Sorry, double E. BODHEE prep, bodhiprep.com, or just search for LSAT RC passages. You will get tons and tons of passages. So Swayam, because a lot of logical reasoning is also comprehension based, if you practice a lot of reading comprehension, obviously logical reasoning is taken care. Right? So the main skills is reading the question and understanding the gist of the passage and understanding what they're asking in the question. Of course, we will be doing tons and tons of practice of verbal reasoning as well. But reading and understanding different types of passages is the key. Because if you're a science student and you are faced with an economics based passage, you might not be comfortable. Similarly, an arts student may not be comfortable reading something from biochemistry. So how do we remove this discomfort? We have to practice reading as many different types of articles as we can. For logical reasoning, Swayam, there is a book by R.S. Agarwal on verbal and non-verbal reasoning. You can try that. They may not have big passage type questions, but they do have a lot of verbal reasoning in it. Prasanna, on a daily basis, because we have tons of time, we have more than a year now left, you can try 2 passages a day. Right? But more importantly, you should do the same passages after you have tried once and seen the answers. You should try it 2-3 times again. so that next time, even after a month, if the same passage is given to you, you should be able to easily understand and solve it. Siddhant, for legal articles don't do every day, because first of all you will get confused by half the things. If you want once a week or something, at least during the year, once or twice a week, daily, you will not even be able to come across relevant legal articles. Once or twice a week, you could read a few passages, that's fine. Right? Chalo. So, a break, quick 5-10 minutes, then we come back for our static GK. Yes, Tirth. So, if you understand the passage, try the questions, then when you answer it, check the answers and then read it again. So first time without knowing the answer, when you read the question, it does not make sense. But once you know what the answer is, then if you read the question again, it will be more sensible. So repeating the same passage 2-3 times will automatically give you clarity on what the questions mean. It's a pure matter of repeating things. Repetition is the key. Chalo then.